The Pokemon world. A place with peace, harmony, and no hardships whatsoever. Right? Wrong. While the Pokemon world may seem like it's always been this happy place, that couldn't be farther from the truth. Well, sure, some of the Pokemon from our world may have some creepy backgrounds. The real horror lies within the other worlds. Several entities from other planes of reality have been discovered, and these entities are known as Ultra Beasts. I'm Coffee V, and here's why all of the Ultra Beast Pokemon are terrifying. Also, small disclaimer, the Cosmogline and Necrozma will not be on this list. I know in the lore they are technically Ultra Beast, but Beast Balls don't work on them, and they don't have UB codenames. I mean, come on, how can you be an Ultra Beast without a codename? Well anyway, with that out of the way, let's start. UB01 Symbiont. UB01 Symbiont, also known as Nihilego or the Parasite Pokemon, is a rock poison type that inhabits the ultra deep sea. The first Ultra Beast discovered, Nihilego is capable of latching itself onto a host, and when it does, chaos is about to occur. It's worth noting that Nihilego does not control the actions of the host directly, and we're not even sure if Nihilego is even sentient in the first place, or if it only reacts on reflex like a virus. Instead, it will awaken and kind of boost the capabilities of the host, but to a very extreme level. What Nihilego will do is inject its neurotoxins directly into the host's head and into the brain. Now, these neurotoxins are incredibly stimulating, and as a result, the host will feel extreme excitement and a big lack of inhibition, often causing them to act out in crazy ways, all while the Ultra Beast feeds. In fact, Nihilego's toxins seem to actually turn negative emotions into happiness. As a result, Nihilego will often target anxious people. Yeah, so this thing's basically just a flying head crab that it can presumably breathe in water and air, so nowhere on the planet is safe from this thing. Now, while we never actually see any water in the ultra deep sea, it's likely that there probably is some, because it's literally called the sea. But this might not even be a relevant point because we're not even clear if the thing's alive or even if it needs to breathe. UB02-S Absorption. UB02-S Absorption, also known as Buzzwole or the Swollen Pokemon, is a bug fighting type that inhabits the Ultra Jungle. Buzzwole is actually pretty similar to the previous Ultra Beast, how they both latch on and take a host's energy, but the previous Ultra Beast does that pure to survive. This one mainly does it just so it can further strengthen itself. Buzzwole's able to absorb energy from both people and Pokemon, and can create a chemical reaction between the absorbed fluids and its own body fluids, causing it to grow ever stronger. And its proboscis is said to be harder than even diamond, so basically anything will be penetrated by it. Because of this, Buzzwole's body has swollen to an enormous degree, and its muscles are even stronger than steel. Interestingly, it seems the main reason that Buzzwole is constantly building muscle is because it seems to be very proud of its physique. It will constantly flex and show off its body, but whether this is a display of boast or a warning sign not to approach is still unclear. And it's best if you just leave as quickly as possible and not become the first person to find out. To sum up, it's a giant mosquito, which is terrifying enough, but it'll just do nothing but take and take to further strengthen its own body and pride. Kinda like humanity. UB02-M Beauty. UB02-M Beauty, also known as Pheromosa or the Lysone Pokemon, is a bug fighting type that inhabits the Ultra Desert. Pheromosa are tall cockroach-like creatures that have immeasurable speed. In fact, its speed is estimated to even be able to dodge lightning. Some research has shown that it can reach 120 miles per hour in an instant with no need to build up, which far exceeds any living creature recorded to date. So if you ever get chased by this thing, you won't be able to escape. As well as this Pokemon exceeds very powerful pheromones, and any opponent that it battles will just become confused or even lose the will to fight altogether. So not only can you not outrun it, in some scenarios, you can't even fight back. UB03 Lighting. UB03 Lighting, also known as Exurgatree or the glowing Pokemon, is a pure electric type that inhabits the Ultra Plant. The biology of this Pokemon is unlike any other. It resembles a tall mass of wires that can even stand up in a humanoid-like shape. Many have been observed unmoving, with their arms, legs and tail stuck in the ground, absorbing the electricity within, similar to how trees absorb nutrients in the ground. Exurgatree can also vary greatly in size. While the average height seems to be around 3.8 meters, some have been seen to be as tall as mountains. Supposedly, there was a report of an Exurgatree in our world raiding a power plant, and as we know in their own world that they absorb electricity from the ground, it's safe to say this Pokemon feeds and sustains itself with just electricity. It's also been known to have a specific organ that can generate power and discharge millions of volts of power at a single time. And it seems when it runs out of power is when it will return to its dormant tree state, where it'll just absorb more out of the ground. So to conclude, this Pokemon is a living mass of live wires. Probably best not to go near it. Have you ever touched a live wire? Because I haven't. I'd like to keep it that way. UB04-S Blade. UB04-S Blade, also known as Kartana or the Drawn Sword Pokemon, is a grass steel type that inhabits the Ultra Forest. This Pokemon is the smallest Ultra Beast to currently be recorded, at only around 1 foot in height, with its other dimensions being as thin as paper. The biology of this Pokemon is also very peculiar, taking the appearance of a small origami samurai-like thing. Every edge of this Pokemon's body is razor sharp and is even capable of cutting down a thick steel tower in just one stroke. And due to its small size, it can swiftly move around and evade attacks, making it a very dangerous creature. Something to note about its homeworld, the Ultra Forest, is that it's been documented to have people inside, or at least organisms that are very similar to humans. This is one of 3 Ultra Spaces to have entities like this, with others being Ultra Ruin and Ultra Megalopolis. To summarise, this is one of, if not the most dangerous Ultra Beast. It could easily cut off something like one of your limbs, like how a hot knife cuts through butter, and that's just one Kartana. Imagine seeing a swarm of these things. It's safe to saying, draw your sword too literally. UB04-M Blaster. UB04-M Blaster, also known as Celesteela or the Launch Pokemon, is a steel flying type that inhabits the Ultra Crater. This Ultra Beast is tied for being one of the heaviest Pokemon ever recorded at 1,000 kilograms or 2,204 pounds. In its homeworld, it seemingly grows out of the ground like some sort of plant, and once it's matured enough, it will then blast off into space in its own dimension. Why it does this is unknown. This also seems to be the most passive Ultra Beast recorded, as throughout its life cycle it doesn't really do much other than build up energy for launching into space. It absorbs energy from the ground, similarly to Exurgatree. But don't think that this means this Pokemon's safe to be around, as that's far from the truth. Being near this thing when it launches will be one of your biggest, and most likely last mistake you'll ever make. Inside its 2 arm-like appendages, it stores an extremely flammable gas, which it can shoot out, and when Celesteela launches off, the rocket thrust is powerful enough to destroy an entire forest. So, anything near when it launches will basically just be incinerated into dust, and in place of the Celesteela will be left a large crater. This is likely why its homeworld's landscape is covered with large craters, and why the atmosphere seems to be covered in a very thick gas. UB05 Glutton. UB05 Glutton, also known as Guzzlord or the Junkivore Pokemon, is a dark dragon type that inhabits the Ultra Ruin. Guzzlord is a large creature and very likely to be the most dangerous Ultra Beast currently recorded. This thing does nothing but eat, no matter what is in front of it. What's interesting about this Ultra Beast is its Ultra Space it inhabits. It seems to not actually be native to the Ultra Ruins, and one day just came through an Ultra Wormhole into it. And it's also likely the Ultra Ruins only got its name once Guzzlord arrived. Its original native Ultra Space is still unknown. If you're brave enough to explore the Ultra Ruins, you may notice things feel really familiar. We can see that the Ultra Ruins used to be a world likely very similar to ours, and ever since Guzzlord appeared, it's now nothing more than a post-apocalyptic wasteland. It's unknown how long Guzzlord has been there for, or how long it took for it to take over, but the fact this thing destroyed an entire society makes it one of the most dangerous Ultra Beasts, one of the most dangerous Pokemon ever documented. And if you feel like it's a bit far-fetched for just one of these Pokemon to destroy an entire world, I believe that the Ultra Ruins are actually infested with Guzzlord, with there being way more than just one. This Ultra Space also has only one person inside, and based on what we hear from them, it seems most people from this world have fled to another planet due to the Guzzlord. Notice they say other planet, not Ultra Space, so they're still in this dimension somewhere. And the fact that they have the technology to move to another planet, but it still wasn't enough to stop Guzzlord, makes it all the more terrifying. This person claims they stayed behind because of Guzzlord, which doesn't really clarify much. But I have a theory. I think they might have been sent to monitor the Guzzlord, to make sure they don't get sent to any more Ultra Spaces or destroy any more societies. UB06 Adhesive. UB06 Adhesive, also known as boiii or the Poison Pin Pokemon, is a pure poison type that inhabits the Ultra Megalopolis, although there's some evidence to suggest that this might not be its native Ultra Space. This is by far the least dangerous Ultra Beast, and is the only one that's really safe to befriend. In fact, this is the third documented Ultra Space to have people inside, and those people often use boiii as starter Pokemon here. Its main form of attack is shooting poison out of the needles on its head, and they are known to naturally live in large numbers in a huge nest, kinda like bees and wasps. So while these Pokemon may be the safest Ultra Beast to be around, that's not really saying much, since a large swarm of wild boiii could still easily end in disaster if they get aggressive. And that's not even mentioning the other Pokemon in the nest. UB06-2 Stinger. UB06-2 Stinger, also known as Naganadel or the Poison Pin Pokemon, is a poison dragon type that inhabits the Ultra Megalopolis. Although again, there's some evidence to suggest that this might not be its native Ultra Space. This is the evolved form of boiii and serves to be the quote-unquote queen of the boiii nest. Their main priority is to protect all the boiii they nest, so while they may not go out of their way to attack you, if you intrude, you will be attacked. And this Pokemon attacks in similar ways as boiii, how it will shoot poison out its stinger, or stab things with its stinger. It's also worth noting that this is the only discovered Ultra Beast known to evolve, and can be done if a boiii gains a level whilst knowing the move Dragon Pulse. And it's likely any wild boiii in the nest that naturally evolved to Naganadel will then leave the nest and go on to start their own. UB07-S Burst. UB07-S Burst, also known as Blacephalon or the Fireworks Pokemon, is a fire ghost type with an unknown habitat. This Ultra Beast is capable of detaching its head and triggering its head to explode like a firework before being regenerated back. And the dots on the head seem to be able to show what emotion the Pokemon is feeling. What Blacephalon will usually do is slowly sneak up behind a person or Pokemon, and without warning trigger the explosion of its head, shocking the target, which Blacephalon will then steal some of their vitality to use as energy. So it seems this Pokemon is able to survive purely by stealing vital energy, and doesn't need any other organic nutrients. And while it seems it doesn't want to cause any physical harm to anything, being next to a firework that just set off can be a very easy way to have an accident, and as we know by its signature move Mind Blown, the explosion can do a lot of damage. UB-07-M Assembly. UB-07-M Assembly, also known as Stack Attacker, or the Rampart Pokemon, is a rock steel type with an unknown habitat. This Ultra Beast is actually an amalgamation of almost 150 smaller life forms. These small stone slabs all work together, and individually they can move swiftly, but altogether the whole Pokemon tends to move pretty slow. Because the life forms are so good at teamwork, it almost seems like Stack Attacker is just one entity. This Pokemon is also very strong, being able to snap a live tree with just one swing of its leg. While usually the whole Pokemon sits in one place, it can still sometimes avoid attacks by the life forms being able to move and shift out of place. Of course, that's all we really know about Stack Attacker and even Blacephalon. Both UB-07s still have very limited information, and their home Ultra Space is still a mystery. Well, looks like we've reached the end and learned that whatever comes from other dimensions should probably stay in other dimensions. Whether or not more Ultra Beasts will be added in the future is still a mystery, but hey, I'm sure in 10 years when the Gen 7 remakes get made on Nintendo's next console, it's possible we could see more. I was actually kind of surprised when I found out a lot of people don't like the Ultra Beast. Personally, I love them. It gives off an SCP or other secret facility type of feeling, you know, with the dark secrets of the Aether labs, and how the list is UB-01, UB-02, and so on. Well, thanks for watching, and let's just hope we never have to come face to face with any of these Pokemon in real life.